There is a presence within you, older than the stars and more constant than time, a presence that did not arrive when you were born, but one that whispered your being into existence. It is not your body, though it breathes life into your lungs. It is not your mind, though it inspires your thoughts. It is the eternal force, the divine pulse, the infinite intelligence that carved rivers through mountains and beats your heart without your permission. And this force, this source, did not leave you. It is not something you need to earn or seek or borrow from another. The force that created you is still within you. Pause for a moment. Breathe, not from the chest, but from the soul. Let the breath come as if you are being breathed, not as a doing, but as a being. Feel the silence underneath the noise. There is a field of stillness beneath every thought, every identity, every mask you've ever worn. And in that stillness, in that silent space between breaths, dwells the divine. We spend so much of life searching for love, for meaning, for proof that we matter. We try to build ourselves through achievements and accolades, hoping they will fill the invisible spaces we fear. But what if I told you that you were never meant to find yourself out there? What if the treasure you seek has been resting in the quiet center of your being all along? What if the divine is not in some distant sky, but humming gently beneath your skin? The trees do not strain to be magnificent. The ocean does not apologize for its depth, and the stars do not ask permission to shine. Why then do you doubt your own radiance? Why do you hide your light beneath layers of not enough? You are not a mistake. You are not a project in need of fixing. You are a miracle of intention, the expression of a source so loving it birthed galaxies just so you could wake one morning and smile. And yet we forget. We forget who we are. We fall asleep in roles. We let the ego speak as if it were truth. It tells us we are our past. It says we are what we produce. It convinces us that if we just accomplish enough or heal enough or impress enough, then we'll be worthy of the love that is already ours. But you are not your ego. You are not your fears. You are not the voice in your head that demands more from you than you've ever given. You are the one who hears that voice. You are the presence behind it. You are the eternal witness, not the passing weather of thoughts, but the unchanging sky that holds them. There is no need to strive to become something. The force that created you never stopped dwelling within you. It does not ask you to achieve your way to grace. It asks only for your remembrance. Remember, that is a sacred word. Remember who you were before the world told you who to be. Remember the stillness. Remember the love. Remember that you are not separate from God. You are an extension of that very essence. And what is God if not the love that knows no opposite? What is the divine if not the ever-giving source that breathes life into all things and withholds nothing? That same love, that same force formed you. Not in error, not in accident, but in sacredness. And it remains not outside you, but within, pulsing through your every breath, waiting not to be proven, but to be felt. Do you feel it? In the quiet, in the surrender, in the unguarded moments when the world slips away and all that's left is the soft hum of your being. That is the divine. That is the force that has never abandoned you, even when you abandon yourself. Let go of the story that says you must climb to find enlightenment. Stop chasing. Stop bargaining. You were never meant to ascend. You were meant to remember, to return, to sink into the ocean of your being and discover that you were never a drop. You were always the sea. When Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is within you, he wasn't speaking in metaphor. When the Tao Te Ching whispers that the wise do not strive, it is not calling you to laziness, but to surrender. The spiritual life is not about becoming more. It's about shedding what was never true. It is about dissolving the illusions that keep you from seeing what has always been there, that the light you seek is the light you are. So be still, be here, be now. In this moment, you lack nothing. In this breath, you are whole. The past cannot define you. The future cannot fulfill you. Only the present, radiant, holy, untouched by the judgments of the world can reveal the truth. And the truth is simple. You are divine. Not someday, not once you've done enough. Now, as you are, let this be your sacred return. Let this moment be the altar. Lay down your striving. Lay down your fear. Lay down the armor that has kept love out and kept your light in. Come home to yourself. For the force that created you is not gone. It is not hidden. It is not conditional. It is here. It is now. It is you. And as you sink deeper into the stillness, you begin to sense that life is not something happening to you. It is something arising from you. Every blade of grass, every sound of the wind, every reflection in the mirror is not separate from your being, but intimately woven into the tapestry of your soul. There is no dividing line between you and the world you walk through. The boundary has always been imagined. You are not in the universe. You are the universe expressing itself as a moment in time, as a breath in a body, as love in human form. You were not placed here to chase a purpose like a prize outside yourself. You are the purpose, the flowering of your awareness, the quiet realization of your own divinity that is the mission. And as you awaken to this, as the fog begins to lift and you remember your origin, everything around you changes without the world needing to change at all. Because you no longer see through the eyes of lack or fear, but through the eyes of the soul, clear, compassionate, infinitely aware. There is a sacred intelligence in every cell of your being that cannot be taught by books or validated by titles. It is the knowing that does not need to speak, the wisdom that does not need to win. It is the river beneath the noise of your thoughts, and it has always been guiding you not with the urgency of control, but with the quiet certainty of love. You do not need to dominate life to feel safe in it. You do not need to map every step when the current knows the way. Let yourself be carried. You are not weak for letting go. You are wise. For surrender is not giving up, it is giving over. Giving over your small, constructed self to the vast, infinite essence of who you've always been. It is a sacred trust fall into the arms of the source that created stars and yet chose to dwell within your heart. And when you let go, not in fear but in faith, life ceases to be a struggle and begins to flow like a symphony that was never out of tune. You had simply forgotten you were the instrument. So breathe again, this time not to survive but to commune. Feel the breath not as a need but as a sacred offering. Each inhale a returning to presence. Each exhale a release of what never truly belonged to you. The burdens, the expectations, the illusions, they were never yours. You only held them because you forgot that you are already held. You don't have to be anything for this moment to love you. You don't have to earn the right to be embraced by existence. The flower does not beg to bloom. It simply turns to the light and opens. And you, dear soul, are no different. The light is already here. You only need to stop hiding. It's not the darkness that binds us. It's the belief that we are the darkness. But the truth is, you are the light looking through the veil, not the veil itself. You are the seer, not the wound. You are the awareness that observes the pain, not the pain that defines the awareness. And when this truth enters your heart, not as a thought, but as a knowing, you will feel a peace that cannot be touched by circumstance. The kind of peace that sits unmoved while the winds howl, that smiles not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer trying to fix what was never broken. You begin to live not from striving, but from allowing. Not from the clenched fists of fear, but from the open palms of surrender. And in that openness, you become a vessel through which the divine moves, speaks, heals, and blesses, not with effort, but with essence. This is the sacred invitation of your life, not to climb higher, but to descend deeper, to the innermost sanctuary where the force that created you is still waiting. Not with conditions, not with judgment, but with the quiet, unshakable love of something that has always known you, even when you didn't know yourself. And now it calls you again. Not with a shout, but with a whisper. Not with a demand, but with a presence so tender it can only be felt in the spaces where the noise stops. Return there. Return to the place within you that has never been afraid. Return to the knowing that you are not a wave in search of the ocean. You are the ocean, playing as a wave for a little while. And in that return, may you remember the force that created you is still within you. It always was, and it always will be. Because something in you, ancient and silent, is ready now not to be convinced, but to be known again. Not in words, but in being. There is a rhythm to this universe, and you are not outside of it. You are not an accident trying to find your place in a grand design. You are the design. You are the breath and the breather. You are the question and the answer. You are the mystery unfolding itself through the form of a human life. And every time you pause, every time you choose presence over performance, silence over story, truth over image, you step back into that rhythm. You stop fighting the current and begin to move as the river itself. And the river does not wonder where it is going. It flows. It trusts the downward pull, the quiet gravity that guides it. And so must you trust the current within the inner pull toward stillness, toward peace, toward love not found but remembered. You spend so long looking outside for direction, teachers, maps, rules, instructions. But the true compass has always been within, quietly turning toward truth, even when the path seemed uncertain. This is the paradox of awakening. Nothing is added, and yet everything is revealed. You don't become more you remember, you are already whole. Even the broken parts, the cracks, the doubts, the trembles, they too are sacred. Not as flaws, but as openings, entry points for the light to pour in. The wound is not where you were abandoned by the divine. It is where the divine never stopped entering. And when you understand this, when the mind softens its grip and the heart begins to open, not because it feels safe, but because it finally feels real, then something shifts. The world doesn't become easier, but it becomes lighter. You don't stop feeling, but you stop resisting what is felt. You become like a tree rooted deep in the earth, no longer afraid of the seasons. Because you know your life is not defined by winter, nor measured by bloom. It is made sacred by its beingness, not its performance. This is the essence of freedom, not that life conforms to your will, but that your will melts into the infinite wisdom of life itself. You stop praying for the path to change and begin to bless the ground beneath your feet. You see that the force within you does not fear uncertainty. It birthed uncertainty so that discovery could be born. It created contrast not as punishment, but as palette. And your soul chose this life, this path, this very moment, not to escape it, but to transform through it. You are not late, you are not behind, you are not unfinished. You are precisely where the divine needs you to be for the next unfolding. The ego will scream for control. It will argue with reality, try to rewrite the moment, declare war on what island, but the soul only whispers yes. Yes to the rain and the Sunday, yes to the breaking and the blooming, yes to the quiet mystery that says even when you cannot see the way forward is still seeing you. And how do you trust that? Not by force, but by surrender. Not by solving, but by softening. By stepping back and letting the breath lead. Letting the heart speak. Letting life write its poetry through your presence. Because the force that created you didn't make a mistake. It didn't plant you here to be lost in striving or drowning in proving. It placed you here, now, in this body, in this breath, because it knew what it was doing. It knew that within you was the strength to remember, the grace to rise, the humility to kneel before something greater, not as inferior, but as intimately connected. The wave does not bow to the ocean in submission, it bows in union, in remembrance, in joy. And so must you, not to shrink yourself, but to dissolve the illusion that you were ever separate to begin with. Let yourself be guided now, not by fear, but by feeling, not by habit, but by truth. Let each step be less about arriving and more about revealing. Let each moment become a homecoming, a return to the quiet sanctuary where your divinity has never been absent. And in this return, in this sacred unfolding, may you begin to live not as someone chasing light, but as the light remembering it never stops shining. You see, the more you live from this space, the space where the soul breathes freely, the less you feel the need to hold on to identities that once made you feel safe. You no longer need to be the strong one, the perfect one, the one who always knows, always succeeds, always appears untouched. Because now you know that true strength is not in the appearance of control, but in the willingness to be open, to be real, to let your life be a prayer instead of a performance. And in that vulnerability, you discover a deeper truth, that the same force that painted the galaxies into being is the same presence that pulses through your most tender moments. It does not need you to be anything more. It only asks that you be what you already are, open, present, surrendered, not weak, surrendered, not resigned, aligned. There is no shame in shedding what you no longer need, no shame in letting the mask slip, the guard fall, the persona soften into dust. What you lose in image, you gain in soul. And the soul is not interested in being impressive. It is only interested in being authentic. It is only interested in love. But not the kind of love the world sells to you, conditional, transactional, fragile, number. The love that lives in the heart of the divine is different. It has no edges. It has no terms. It is not earned. It is not won. It is not lost. It is what you are made of. It is what you've always been. And when you remember that, when you return to that place of origin, not with your mind, but with your being, you stop waiting for the world to reflect back your worth. Because your worth no longer comes from reflection, it comes from radiance. It comes from the source within. And this source, this sacred force that whispered you into existence, it does not retreat, it does not punish, it does not withhold. It is the unchanging, unmoving, unconditional presence of life itself. And it remains with you even when you forget, even when you wander, even when you resist. The light does not disappear just because you close your eyes. It waits patiently, lovingly, until you are ready to see again. And now you are beginning to see. You are seeing through the illusions of separation, of lack, of otherness. You are seeing the divine in the faces around you, not because they've changed, but because you've remembered where to look. You see that every being is a mirror. Every stranger, every wound, every joy, a reflection of your own unhealed places and your own infinite capacity to heal. This is a sacred alchemy of awakening, to transform suffering not by avoiding it, but by embracing it with the eyes of the divine. To look at your own pain, not with judgment, but with compassion so deep it dissolves the story and reveals the soul beneath. And when you do that, when you love yourself, not in spite of your scars, but because of them, you unlock something ancient, something that has been waiting lifetimes to be felt. A knowing beyond thought, a presence beyond effort. It says, I have never left you. Even in your darkest hour, I was there. Even when you felt most alone, I was holding you. Not because you did something right, but because I am you, and I can never abandon myself. Let that in. Let it wash through the chambers of your heart that still grip the idea that you must do more, be more, fix more. Let it soften the tight places, the clenched truths, the old fears dressed as wisdom. Let it cleanse the shame you've carried for being human, for breaking down, for not always knowing the way. The force that created you did not make a mistake. It wove your humanity with your divinity, not as opposites, but as complements, two hands of the same presence, one reaching toward the sky, the other rooted in the soil. You are both, the light and the longing, the storm and the silence. And that is not something to fix, that is something to revere. And in this reverence, in this deep bow to all that you are, the journey is no longer about becoming something else. It becomes about being what you have always been. It becomes about remembering. Then we continue, as truth does, without interruption, without apology, without end. And so the remembrance deepens, not as a sudden lightning strike, but as the slow unveiling of the sky at dawn. Each moment, a little more light. Each breath, a little more space. The fog begins to lift, not because you fought it away, but because you stopped trying to escape it. You let it be. You let yourself be. And in that letting, something sacred emerged, not from effort, but from grace. Grace is not something you earn. It is not a prize given to the deserving. It is the ever-present offering of the divine to the part of you willing to receive. It flows most freely into the open hands, the softened heart, the mind that bows instead of resists. And grace, once welcomed, begins to rewrite your entire way of being. Not by changing the world around you, but by dissolving the lens through which you see. You begin to witness yourself not as a collection of flaws or tasks or unmet expectations, but as a work of sacred art in progress, not unfinished, not broken, just unfolding. And this unfolding, oh, this sacred unfolding, it is not something to rush. It is not something to master. It is something to trust. Can you feel it now, the shift? The gentle loosening of the grip you've held on who you thought you had to be. That subtle release is the soul's way of exhaling, of saying, yes, beloved, this is the way home. Because home is not a place, it is a presence, a frequency, a remembering that wherever you are, when you are with yourself, truly with yourself, you are with God. And God is not far away. God is not watching from a distance. God is not a judge behind the sky. God is this moment, this breath, this stillness. God is the invisible intelligence moving through your bloodstream, the silent witness behind your thoughts, the warmth you feel when all else falls away and only love remains. This love, it is not a feeling, it is a state of being. It is the language of the soul, the voice of the force that created you. It does not shout, but it is louder than fear. It does not compete, but it is stronger than doubt. And it says over and over again, in every silence, in every sunrise, in every ache, in every joy, you are not separate, you are not alone, you are not forgotten. You are my expression, my extension, my embodiment. and I live within you still. And when you receive that, not just in your mind, but in your marrow, something begins to crack open. The armor you wore for decades begins to fall away. Not because you forced it, but because you no longer need it. You realize you were never meant to be defended, you were meant to be revealed. And what is revealed is not small, it is not fragile, it is not uncertain. What is revealed is magnificent. The light that breaks through is not a new light. It is the original light, the one that has been waiting behind the curtain of fear and story and conditioning, the one that has been untouched by every storm, the one that remembers what you forgot, that you are sacred, that you are powerful, that you are and always have been divine. Because now you see, don't you? Not with your eyes, but with your being. You see that every moment of pain was not a punishment, but an invitation. Every silence was not emptiness, but a portal. Every longing, every ache, every question, they were not signs of what was missing, but whispers from what was waiting. The force that created you was never absent, it was simply quiet. Waiting for you to key it too. And now you are quiet enough to hear it. You hear it in the spaces between your thoughts, in the warmth behind your breath, in the inexplicable peace that comes when you stop running and start listening, when you stop searching and start surrendering. And in this stillness, the most profound truth arises not as an idea, but as a knowing. There is nowhere to go, nothing to become, no future version of yourself to chase down, no enlightenment to earn, because the light is already here, because you are already home. The wave at last remembers that it was never apart from the ocean. The leaf, gently falling, does not mourn it dances, for it knows it has always been held by the tree. And you, beloved, you now remember that your soul has always been held by something infinite, something holy, something formless and loving beyond words. So what now? Now you live, not in reaction, but in revelation. Not in fear, but in fullness. You speak not to be heard, but to offer truth. You create not to prove your worth, but to express your divinity. You walk not to escape your pain, but to walk with it like an old friend, knowing even pain is sacred when touched by presence. You move through the world not to win, not to earn, not to convince, but to radiate, to serve, to shine without trying, to love without condition. And when doubt returns for it, will you no longer panic? You welcome it. You breathe with it. You sit beside it like a child who simply forgot the way, because now you know the way is not out there. The way is within. And when the world asks, who are you to be so free? You will smile gently, silently, and say nothing. For your life will speak louder than words. Your presence will answer questions no language can. You are not here to be understood. You are here to be true. You are not here to follow a script. You are here to embody the sacred improvisation of being. You are not here to perform the divine. You are here to remember that you are the divine. So breathe now, not as a task, but as a prayer. Let the breath move as it always has, without your control, a soft reminder that life loves you, even when you forget to love yourself. Let each breath be a return to the center, the source, the still flame that never flickers, no matter how fierce the storm. And as you rise from this remembrance, do not look back to who you were, bless them. Thank them, lay them down gently, and step forward not into a new self, but into the self that always was unveiled, unburdened, unbound, for the force that created you is still within you. And now you remember, now you are free. There is a sacred illusion we were born into a dream that has shaped how we see ourselves and the divine. It tells us that God is distant, watching from somewhere beyond the stars, separated from us by holy texts, traditions, and the trembling ladder of unworthiness we believe we must climb. But this illusion, though ancient, is not true. And the time has come not to debate, not to reason, but to remember what the soul has always known, even in silence, that God is not somewhere above, God is within. Beneath the noise of your thoughts, beneath the roles you've played and the masks you've worn, there is a presence, eternal, untouched, unchanging. That presence is not your mind, nor your body, nor your past. That presence is God, moving as you, breathing through you, loving within you. Not the image of God, not the idea of a ruler in the sky, but the very substance of life itself, the Tao that cannot be spoken. The spirit that hovers not above the waters, but within every drop. The Christ light not on a pedestal, but in your chest, glowing patiently beneath every fear. You do not need to ascend a mountain or kneel in a temple to find this holiness. You need only to turn inward to be still, to listen, to breathe. The temple is your being. The scripture is your heartbeat. The prayer is your presence. Why then have we spent lifetimes looking outward? Because the ego fears surrender. The ego fears stillness. It whispers that you are separate, flawed, incomplete. It convinces you that divinity is reserved for the few, for the chosen, for the pure. But the soul knows better. The soul remembers, and in its remembering, it whispers back, you are already home. Not someday, not after you fix yourself, not once you've earned forgiveness or transcended your flaws. Now, in this moment, in this breath. God does not wait for your perfection. God is your presence right now, exactly as you are. There is a spark in you, uncreated and undying, a spark that watched your first breath with infinite love and will cradle your last with the same. That spark is not yours, it is you, and it is holy. It is sacred. It is enough. You were never meant to worship the light from a distance. You were meant to realize you are the light. The mystics knew. The poets wept for it. Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. Not later, not elsewhere, but within. Rumi danced into ecstasy, not for a God afar, but for the divine beloved breathing him. Lao Tzu pointed not to the stars, but to the way that flows through all things, quietly animating the world from within. The illusion of distance was never God's doing. It was ours, born of shame, of fear, of forgetting. But now the veil is lifting, and as it lifts, you are not becoming something new. You are remembering something eternal. Let that remembrance wash over you now. Let it dissolve the belief that you are not enough. Let it unravel the story that God is outside you. Let it bring you home. Home is not a place. Home is the space in which you remember who you are. And who you are is not your name, your past, your labels. Who you are is the I am behind them all. The breath of the divine wrapped in flesh. The infinite awareness having a temporary experience. The formless presence appearing as form. You do not have to try to be spiritual. You are spirit. You do not have to earn love. You are made of love. You do not have to seek God. You are an expression of God seeking itself. This truth will not always comfort your ego. It will undo it. Because the ego thrives on the illusion of separation, and this truth makes separation impossible. You are not the storm of your thoughts. You are the sky that holds them. You are not the waves of your emotion. You are the ocean they rise from. You are not even the voice in your head. You are the silence that listens. And that silence, that pure, unchanging presence is God. Not a God that demands, but a God that gives. Not a God that punishes, but a God that heals. Not a God that needs your obedience, but a God that lives in your joy. This is not a rejection of tradition. It is a return to truth. You are not here to become worthy. You are here to remember you always were. You are not here to chase light. You are here to awaken to the light within. You are not here to beg for miracles. You are the miracle. And when you begin to live from this, knowing not as philosophy, but as felt truth, everything changes. You stop trying to prove your worth. You stop trying to control the world. You stop trying to earn love, because the source of all love, all worth, all peace is no longer something you chase. It is something you allow, and in that allowing, you begin to radiate, not because of what you have, not because of what you've achieved, but because you are aligned with who you are. You become the space others feel safe in. You become the peace that stills the room. You become the presence that reminds the world, God is here, not above, not beyond, here in me, in you, in this. This is a quiet revolution, not one of noise and anger, but one of remembrance and radiance. A return to the knowing that we are all expressions of one divine life, playing out its beauty in a billion unique ways. You are not alone. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are the divine discovering itself one sacred breath at a time. So stop reaching and start receiving. Stop striving and start surrendering. Not in weakness, but in strength. The strength that comes from finally, fully knowing. God is not somewhere above. God is within. And you are already whole. And so, as you let this truth settle deeper, like light filtering through still water, something begins to stir in the quiet of your being. It is not a thought. It is not a belief. It is an ancient awareness, soft and unshakable, whispering that you have never needed to chase what you already are. There is nothing to ascend, for you were never below. There is nothing to reach, for you were never far. There is only the releasing, the beautiful shedding of what was never yours to carry. You were not born into a life of lack. You were born into a sacred dance, and your heartbeat is the rhythm of that eternal song. Each step you take, whether stumbling or soaring, is guided by an invisible intelligence that does not judge your path, but blesses it with presence. You do not walk alone. You walk with the breath of stars in your lungs, with the wisdom of the universe humming beneath your skin. When you pause long enough to feel it, you will know the ground beneath your feet is holy because you are walking upon it. There is no salvation to earn. There is only the salvation of remembering. And that remembering is not loud. It does not arrive in grand revelations or thunderous declarations. It comes in the gentle act of noticing the aliveness in your hands, the awareness behind your eyes, the stillness beneath your restlessness. It comes when you are no longer trying to be somewhere else and you fall fully into the miracle of now. This is the power of presence, not as a concept, but as a living truth. When you enter it, even briefly, time begins to unravel. The past loosens its grip. The future releases its weight. And what remains is this breath, rich and eternal, as if the universe is breathing through you as you and it island. You are not the echo of your wounds. You are not the residue of your regrets. You are the one who has endured them all and remains unbroken, not untouched, but undefeated. Like a mountain kissed by storms, you have weathered pain not to be ruined by it, but to be refined by it. Each tear has watered the garden of your becoming. Each sorrow has carved out a deeper space for joy. And in that depth, in the raw openness of your heart, God does not arrive. God is revealed, not as a rescuer, but as your own radiant essence. The divine is not coming to save you from your humanity. The divine is here to shine through it. Let that truth hold you now. Let it dissolve the illusion that you must become something more. Let it quiet the voice that says you must do something greater. You are not here to perform. You are here to align. And alignment is not a task. It is a surrender into the simplicity of being. Your very existence is a prayer, not the spoken kind, but the embodied kind. Every breath, every glance, every moment of stillness is a sacred offering to the source from which you came. You need no incense, no altar, no special words. Your presence is enough. Your awareness is enough. Your willingness to feel, to open, to remember this is enough. Even now, as you read, something in you knows this is true. Not because I said it, but because you felt it all along, in quiet moments, in nature, in music, in the gaze of a child, in the ache of longing. You felt the touch of something greater, not above, but within. It's been calling to you, not to change, but to return. Return to the simplicity of being. Return to the sanctuary of stillness. Return to the knowing that nothing is missing. In truth, you are not on a journey to find God. You are on a journey to remove everything that made you forget where God lives. And when the last layer is peeled away, when the last mask is gently set down, what remains is not emptiness, but radiance. You are that radiance. Not because of what you have done, but because of what you are. Not someday, but now. Not if you succeed, but even in your surrender. You are the flame, not the wick. You are the light, not the lamp. You are the divine, not in metaphor, but in essence. And this realization is not pride, it is humility. Because in recognizing the sacred in yourself, you begin to see it in all. You begin to meet every face as the face of God. You begin to hear every voice as a note in the divine symphony. You begin to forgive, not to forget pain, but because you remember love. The lines that once separated you from others blur and soften. You look into a stranger's eyes and see a reflection. You feel another's sorrow and sense your own healing. This is not sentiment, it is union. It is the truth that beneath all form, there is only one presence playing every part. And that presence is love. Not the love we barter for approval, but the love that simply is the love that formed the stars and now animates your soul. It does not arrive when you deserve it. It does not disappear when you falter. It is the eternal yes beneath all your no's. It is the open hand beneath your grasping. It is the home that welcomes you even when you have forgotten how to knock. Let this love not be a concept you hold. Let it be the truth that holds you. Let it soften your edges. Let it silence the war within. Let it remind you, you are not separate from the source. You are the source remembering itself. And remembering, you are free. Freedom, then, is not a reward bestowed upon the worthy. It is the fragrance of truth when illusion fades. It is not earned through perfection, nor achieved through conquest. True freedom is what remains when you are no longer at war with the moment. It is the soft, unwavering peace that arises when you are no longer running from yourself. You see, the prison was never built of circumstance. It was built of belief. Beliefs inherited, absorbed, repeated until they became the wallpaper of your mind. Beliefs that told you your value could be measured, your spirit could be broken, your life could be unloved, but what you believe is not always what is true. And what is true, what is eternally true, is that you are already free. Not the freedom to do anything, but the freedom to be everything you already are. The soul does not require permission. It only requires your presence. It does not demand proof of worth. It is the worth. And it will wait patiently without judgment for as many lifetimes as it takes for you to turn inward and remember, I am. Not I am this or I am that, simply I am, the most sacred utterance, the original echo of creation, the soundless vibration that spoke you into existence and never once withdrew its song. And when you breathe into that space that I and the layers begin to fall away, the fear, the striving, the mask of needing to be enough, they melt like shadows at sunrise. You do not need to cast them out. You need only to see them. Because what you see through the eyes of presence, you no longer fear. And what you no longer fear no longer controls you. Even your wounds, those deep and aching places, become sacred when seen from this space. For they too have been part of the unfolding, not as punishments, but as portals. Not to harden you, but to hollow you out so that more light could pour in. Your scars are not proof of brokenness. They are proof that even pain could not extinguish your light. And that light, make no mistake, is not a metaphor. It is literal, it is real, it is energy. It is life itself moving through you, not because you are special, but because you are. The tree does not boast of its roots. The sun does not apologize for its glow. And you no longer need to shrink in the name of humility. Your light does not dim another's, it awakens theirs. You become a lighthouse not by shouting into the storm, but by standing rooted in stillness. You become a sanctuary for others, not by preaching peace, but by being peace. And this being, this sacred embodied being, is your highest offering to the world. There is no future moment where this begins. There is no enlightened version of you waiting behind some curtain of achievement. The moment is now, the truth is here. And it has always been. You are not here to chase enlightenment. You are here to embody light, to bring it into your relationships, to infuse it into your work, to let it pour through your laughter, your silence, your tears, to live not above the world, but deeply within it, anchored in the divine, yet fully awake to the human. This is not transcendence. This is integration, the sacred marriage of heaven and earth inside your very breath. And the more you trust this, the more life opens. Not because you control it, but because you no longer resist it. Resistance was never strength, it was fear dressed as armor. But surrender is true power. Not giving up, but giving in to the flow, to the intelligence that has always known the way home. When you surrender, you stop bracing for life. You start receiving it. You stop surviving. You start living. And not living for tomorrow, living in this holy, unrepeatable now. Look around you right now. This moment, this breath, this flicker of light in your eyes, it will never come again. It is not a bridge to something better. It is the miracle you've been waiting for. And the one who is waiting is the same one who holds the key to freedom. You, not the you others see, not the you pretend to be, but the sacred you, the quiet you, the you who has always known that God is not watching from above God, is watching through your eyes. God is moving in your hands. God is breathing in your lungs. God is living as you. And when you finally surrender to this, knowing not with your mind, but with your whole being, the search ends. Not because you gave up, but because you arrived. Home, at last. Home in the self. Home in the moment. Home in the truth that you were never separate, never less, never lost. You were simply waiting for yourself. And now you are here. Here, now, as the sacred breath of your own arrival whispers through you, feel the stillness widen. Feel the gentle echo of a truth, long buried under the noise of ambition and the endless reaching toward the horizon. You are not a wanderer cast adrift in a foreign land. You are the land. You are the presence from which all paths emerge and to which all paths return. You are not seeking the light at the end of a tunnel. You are the light within it, illuminating the way, not just for yourself, but for the whole of existence that dances through you. And this realization, this remembrance is not an ending. It is the great beginning. The beginning of a life lived not in reaction, but in revelation. A life in which every breath becomes an altar. Every touch becomes a blessing. Every moment, no matter how small, becomes holy. Not because the world changed, but because your eyes finally opened to what was always true. The divine was never apart from you. It was waiting in the silence, beneath every doubt, beneath every moment you felt unseen, untouched, unloved, not gone, just unnoticed. You begin to see with new vision, not the sight of the eyes, but the seeing of the soul. The world that once felt sharp and hard begins to soften. The people you once feared or judged are no longer threats or obstacles, but reflections, messengers. Some will arrive to open your heart, others to break it so it can be made new. Every encounter sacred. Every voice, the voice of God trying on 1,000 accents to teach you what love looks like from every angle. This is not romanticism, it is realism at its most sacred depth. Because once you know who you are, truly know, everything becomes a mirror. The beauty you see in others is the beauty awakening in you. The pain you feel in the collective is your own ache for unity. And the love that flows from you, that limitless, unconditional stream, is not yours to control. It flows because you've stopped blocking it. It flows because you've remembered that to hold back love is to hold back your nature. And when you withhold who you are, suffering is inevitable. There is no longer room for the old story, the one that said you had to earn love, that your value could be added to or subtracted from based on your deeds. That story belonged to the ego, to the conditioned self, to the false identity crafted by fear. That self was never real. It was a necessary character on the stage of your forgetting. But now the curtain is lifted, and the actor, exhausted from pretending, bows to the truth. In the presence of truth, the old masks melt away, and what remains is terrifyingly beautiful because it is honest, it is raw. It is you without the armor, you without the apology, you without the performance. You as you were before the world taught you to be something else. And from that place, from that deep and tender honesty, your life begins to bloom. Not outwardly necessarily, not in achievements the world applauds, but inwardly, like a flower opening in the dark, with no need for recognition, only the joy of being what an island, that is grace. Not a favor bestowed by a distant deity, but the natural outcome of alignment. Grace is the universe reorganizing itself around your wholeness, not because you demanded it, but because you allowed it. Because when you remember who you are when you live, not as the seeker, but as the seen, you no longer move in haste or fear. You no longer struggle to convince life of your worth. Instead, you become quiet, rooted, unshakable. You stop grasping. And in the absence of grasping, abundance flows. Not the abundance of accumulation, but the abundance of enoughness. Enough love, enough peace, enough breath. And in that enoughness, life becomes simple again. Not small, but spacious. The kind of simplicity that brings tears, because you remember the joy was never in the destination, but in the texture of the moment you were too busy to feel, the sound of wind through leaves, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the smile you offer without needing one in return. These are not small things, these are the touch of God. And that touch, that sacred touch, is not outside you, it moves through your hands, your words, your presence. You begin to see that you do not need to heal the whole world. You only need to inhabit yourself fully, because a soul fully present is a healing presence, and presence is contagious. You start to change rooms simply by entering them, not because of charisma, but because of coherence. Not because you speak loudly, but because your silence speaks truth. You carry a vibration that needs no translation. The vibration of someone who has stopped seeking and started being. You forgive more easily, not because the past didn't hurt, but because you no longer define yourself by the pain. You love more openly, not because others always deserve it, but because withholding love feels like choking your own soul. You laugh more freely, not because life is always easy, but because you are no longer waiting for it to be perfect before you feel joy. This is what it means to live from the center. This is what it means to be anchored in the divine within, not as an ideal, but as a lived reality. And so you walk, not faster, but lighter. You speak not louder, but truer. You wake each day not with dread, but with reverence, because you have remembered that life is not something happening to you. It is something happening as you. You are not a mistake waiting to be corrected. You are a miracle unfolding, and the unfolding is enough. And now, beloved soul, as we come to the final bend in this quiet river of remembrance, let the stillness expand once more. Let it cradle you like warm light spilling through a window you forgot was always open. You need not rush this moment. You need not grasp for one last truth to carry with you. What is needed now is not another thought, but a breath, a soft surrender into what has already been awakened within you. This is not the end of the journey. This is the moment the journey returns to itself. The circle completes, not with triumph, but with tenderness. The questions you once carried like heavy stones have softened. Some have vanished, not because they were answered, but because they were never yours to carry. What remains is not the knowledge of the mind, but the wisdom of the heart, a quiet knowing that needs no proof. You no longer ask, "Where is God?" because the very question dissolves in the light of your own being. You have seen the face of the divine not in the sky, but in the mirror. Not in thunder, but in silence. Not in perfection, but in presence. You have touched the sacred not by reaching upward, but by falling inward. And in the falling, you rose. You rose into the clarity that you are not missing. You rose into the peace that nothing is wrong. You rose into the grace that nothing was ever broken, only waiting to be seen as whole. And now, the sacred breath within you moves with new rhythm. Not the rhythm of striving, but of surrender. Not the rhythm of urgency, but of trust. The kind of trust that knows beyond logic that life is for you, that every path, even the winding ones, led you here, that nothing was wasted, not a tear, not a silence, not a mistake. You understand now that God was never found because God was never missing. The divine did not need to be summoned, praised, or convinced. It needed only to be recognized. And in that recognition, you were reborn, not into someone new, but into the truth you never stopped being. And now you walk not as one who searches, but as one who sees. You speak not to impress, but to bless. You live not to prove, but to embody. The ego may still whisper its doubts, but it no longer leads. Fear may still knock, but it no longer enters. You no longer bow to what is loud, you listen for what is true. There is a sacred quietness to your soul now, a depth that cannot be explained, only felt. Those who meet you will sense it not with their minds, but with something deeper. You will become, without effort, a mirror for others to see their own light, not by shining brighter, but by being clear. You will not lead by force. You will lead by remembrance. And this remembrance, this gentle, holy knowing, will guide every step forward. It will guide you in love, in service, in stillness. It will whisper when to act, when to rest, when to simply breathe and let the moment be enough. Because the truth is, it always was. You were never lost. You were never forgotten. You were never unworthy. You were simply asleep to the miracle of your own existence. But now, you are awake. Awake not as a seeker, but as the source. Awake not as a part of God, but as God expressed through form. Awake not with answers, but with presence. And that presence, your sacred presence, is enough. Enough to heal. Enough to lead. Enough to love. Enough to live. So now, let this final truth rise in you like morning light. God is not somewhere above. God is within. God is this moment. God is this breath. God is this you. And you, dear soul, are finally home.